Namaskar. Welcome to Fireside Chat with Sridhar Chityala ji, and we have a guest today, Sarvashreshth Sree TV Mohandas Pai Avare. Mohandas Pai Avare, Namaskara and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskara.
So viewers,
Namaskara. Ellarige.
sir, viewers, I keep saying Namaskaram, Namaskara, Namaskar, Namaskaramu, and so on. These are all flavors, but in our heart, we are all the same, including in Bengal, they say Namaskar. Look, we are Sanatanis. Namaskar is our way of greeting. Whenever we have seen somebody in front of us who is just deserves a lot of respect, that's why we naman to their akaram. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking time out from your busy schedules to talk to PGurus viewers today. This is a very, very important topic in my opinion today. There is a lot of fake narratives worldwide coming around as if India is in a big soup. In fact, if you look at, I just saw a tweet that even Twitter is now acknowledging the numbers are going down. So that's a good sign, I guess. But be that as it may, today I'm going to have Sridhar Chityala ji guest host, and he and Mohandas Pai ji will be talking about what is happening in India and also how the rest of the world is coming together to help India. Also, what is India going to do looking forward? Exports are looking good. Is that enough? Is there something else that needs to be done? All this stuff is going to come to famous finance experts are going to talk now. Over to you, Sridhar ji, and you can take it from here.
Yes, good evening to everybody in United States, in India, and good morning to everybody in East Coast and West Coast. Namaskara, Mohanji. Welcome to our program. And again, we look forward to another exciting session. I think it's very topically very important and relevant. And most recently, India has received adverse press, notwithstanding the fact stupendous progress that India has made in combating the pandemic. It is not without its shortcomings. It has had its shortcomings, but there's no country in the world which has dealt with this with a leap forward, because this is pandemic that we are talking to. We went through the same thing. Those who are in United States, especially me in Manhattan, we went through this tumultuous experience in the first wave that we saw last year. So, Mohandas, what I will do is I will start with some data, and from there we will take the discussion forward. So, as we look at yesterday's numbers, or this morning's numbers, which is effectively reflecting yesterday's, you can update. Totally 173 million people have been vaccinated, and India reached a rate of 2.5 million vaccines per day, people being vaccinated. That's a stupendous number. United States has just reached the 3 million number. So this is a great number by way of the progress. Then when we look at the number of people whose samples have been tested for COVID, we are talking about 305 million people whose samples, 305 million samples have been tested. I don't want to correlate it to the people. And then yesterday, 1.85 million samples were tested. When you look at the US population, these are staggering numbers by way of what has been achieved. Now, total cases is around 23 million. And yesterday we saw 329,942 active cases. But here's the number that has not been reported. The number of people who has discharged is around 356,000. So in other words, India had a negative. In other words, the number of people who are active got down by 30 or 36,000 people from the net active cases. The net active cases today stands at 3.715 million. And the number of deaths is 249,000 or 250,000. Yesterday's number being 3876. So when you look at these numbers, why is it, first of all, Mohan, you can set the context in terms of the numbers, but also where the pandemic, the wave 2 is, and why the media and the government is not communicating as to how this is being combated, rather than saying everything is a crisis, or you see all these graveyard photographs being shown.
Well, Sridhar, you know that we have this vulture journalist try to eke their living earning dollars by writing in the Washington Post, New York Times, and foreign media, abusing India, showing some gory pictures, which to the Western eye looks very exotic, and demeaning India. They don't write on data. They don't make a comparison. They don't try to understand what to do. They do that because, that is what this media wants. And we have this Lutyens media in Delhi who are leftovers of the British Raj, supporters of the ancient regime, who are essentially darbaris, hangers-on, power brokers, who are out of power, who are out to prove that India is a broken country and only they know what to do, etc., with diminishing influence. So they write a very fake narrative. Let me give you some data. All right. We tackled the first wave very well. We had the lowest level of infection for a large country per million population, lowest level of deaths, etc. Prime Minister Modi shut down the country. At the point of time when he shut down the country, nobody knew how to tackle this. Remember, this is in March of last year. Nobody knew how to tackle it. And everybody said social distancing. India did not have face masks. India did not have PPE. It did not have vaccine. We didn't know what to do. And people are died in the streets because there's no health care, not enough health care. So he shut down the country for 45, 50 days. The economy went down. We paid a price. And gradually, over a period of time, we reopened. And in the month of March, we did very well. And the revenue collection for the financial year March was much higher than the revised budget. And March and April, we had a record collection of GST for March, showing that the economy had more or less recovered by March. Now, in the month of February, we started the second wave. Sadly, Prime Minister Modi supposed to have made a statement that we have conquered this, blah, 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 in January, because none of the technical people, the doctors or the health authority, anybody said we're going to have a second wave so soon, blah, 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 and all that kind of thing. They were not prepared. But we had a second wave in Maharashtra, and the Maharashtra second wave transferred to Gujarat, then it went to Delhi. But Sridhar, the important thing is, infection went up from 100,000 daily in the last week of March to something like 400,000 4 weeks later. Now, no country in the world, prepared or unprepared or whatever it is, could handle a deluge of that sort, 100,000 to 400,000 a day in 4 weeks. You'll notice when the US went up to 300,000 in the second wave, everything broke down, right? There are no oxygen, there were no beds, people are dying in the streets. You saw what happened in New York. Well, in the UK, it went up to 70,000. The whole system was breaking down. 1,000 deaths. UK is only 65 million people. 1,000 deaths is equal to 20 times. That is 20,000 deaths in India. 70,000 is equal to 1.4 million. The US is 25% of India. 300,000 into 4 is 1.2 million, right? And 4,000 dead into 4 is 16,000. Look at the percent of population. We had very high stakes. Now, government was caught unaware. There was a problem and there was a shortage of oxygen. We normally consume 2,000 tons of medical oxygen. Government stopped everything, and today we're consuming 10,000 tons, 5x. And we discovered to a chagrin that despite this increase in oxygen consumption, we didn't have enough vehicles to transport. Because they need cryogenic tankers. Most of the oxygen is the big plants in eastern India. We had a problem in Delhi and western India. Right? Reliance is supplying 1,000 tons of oxygen. The steel plants are supplying 1,000, 2,000 tons each. So they got railways going up and down. So it's a logistical supply chain issue. Now, people made some stupid remarks that India was exporting oxygen. We exported some 9,000 tons of oxygen when you produce 2 million tons a year for 1 month in March. And that was industrial grade oxygen and not medical oxygen because we are surplus. Now, people write all this negative because they want to run a fake narrative that India has failed, etc. And see that you gave the data. 300 million plus testing. Which country has done that? We have got about 175 million today. US data is 1 day old. People who have been given the jabs. That means about 140 million people have got the first shot. All right. Maybe 35 million people have got the second shot. Now we're opening up for 18 to 44. Now, if you look at the UK, they opened up for 44 2 weeks ago. And even in the US, I don't know whether everybody can get the shots. I don't know. In the UK, everybody cannot get the shots even now. So if you look at all this data, India has done reasonably well. Now, what are the criticism? Government was not prepared. Yes, government was not prepared. The state government, central government are not prepared. Sridhar, there are 29 states in India, like you have 50 states in America. Prime Minister Modi sitting down in Delhi cannot dictate to them. In the first wave, he took the decision, shut down the country. Everybody pointed fingers and said, you destroyed the economy, you did this, but it saved lives. Now we know what could have happened in the crisis. In the second wave, he said the states have to decide. Maharashtra was in trouble in the month of March. They come out of trouble now. They decided the work. Gujarat was in trouble. The center helped them out. Delhi was in trouble. And all that anarchist Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal said was, in the first week of April, he held a press conference, said, we have got enough oxygen, we got enough offset bed, we are prepared. And then suddenly in another 1 week, he started saying, oh, government should give oxygen, we don't have oxygen, people are dying, and we don't have vaccines, blah, blah, blah. So it became a political narrative. I think the government, state government, central government are done well. Our doctors are losing their lives, our policemen are losing their lives, our bureaucrats are lost their lives. All Indians are rallying to the flag. They're doing a great job. All this fake narrative is not based on data because no country could have done it. And they say you didn't order the vaccine fast enough. You remember, Sridhar, US banned the outflow of vaccine. How much has the US exported? They banned the outflow of vaccine. They banned the outflow of inputs for vaccine for SII. So India makes about 60 to 70 million vaccines a month in SI, that is Serum Institute, about 20-25 in Covaxin, Bharat Biotech, that's about 85 million. We are doing about 2.5 million vaccines a day. And today, Sridhar, you'll be surprised, many people in rural areas are not taking the vaccine. Many people who are at the bottom in the pyramid are not taking it because in the elections in Tamil Nadu, one TV channel ran a news that if you take a vaccine, this is going to happen to you. They showed some fake news. They're all scared. Our office, we had about, many people go take the vaccine. Some of the sub-staff, the security refused to take it, showing that fake news. And we had told them, you can't come back to office till you take the vaccine. So the large complex country, it is difficult to manage in normal circumstances. We don't have enough vaccine. The world is not able to export. And if Pfizer exports, you require cold storage and all that. But people make loose comments saying you didn't give money, you didn't give money. But whatever it is, I think government has done a reasonable job. The people are fighting it out. We have the capacity, if we get a vaccine, to vaccinate 10 million people a day. We can do it all across the country. 10 million people a day, we can do it. We don't have enough vaccine. We are going ahead. We are doing it. That is the reality of the situation, Sridhar.
Got it. Okay, so Mohan, just to stay the course on that point, look, we went through a huge amount of shortages worldwide in the first week.
Yeah.
PPE and masks and basic immunosuppressants, etc. Even how to collect data and combat this specific virus. So ad hoc treatments were adopted as a mechanism. As far as India is concerned, the oxygen shortage was highlighted. Everybody stepped in, and the oxygen issue, to some extent, is being addressed. Now, the question, therefore, is that at least in United States, and what we like to hear from you, what India is doing, is very clear. The hospital system is totally inadequate to do mass vaccinations across the universe of United States or across any of the smaller countries, like Brazil, for that matter, is a reasonable sized country. So what is India's plan? Because many complaints range from, oxygen to, distribution points for taking vaccines. And then, of course, those who are sick, not getting beds, etc., etc. So what is the go-forward plan to expand the distribution points for the vaccination as more and more vaccines make its way into the Indian system to address this? As far as the beds is concerned, this is not a one-off solution that can be done, but still it has to be addressed.
Well, Sridhar, let me say we have 1/5 the health infrastructure per capita the United States has. And the richest country in the world, a country of exceptional people like all of you, suffered because you just could not manage it. That's the nature of the beast. It's got nothing to do with you or us, the nature of the beast. When things go up 4x in 25 days, there's no way you can do anything like this, and people are suffering. Let's accept this. A pandemic is a pandemic is a pandemic, right? We have not invested in health for the last 70 years. We don't have enough human capital, enough doctors and nurses. We know it for 70 years. Till about 8 years ago, our medical human capital was captured by a few people who did not allow new medical colleges come up because they were all taking bribes and all kind of mess. It's been cleaned up now, but we are not yet seeing the results. In 10 years, we'll be able to build some kind of medical infrastructure in beds and people, which will be adequate for our needs. It's not going to happen overnight. Modi has done a lot of work building up things, but we still have a long way to go. The whole of the South has much, much better than the North. Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh are pathetic. West Bengal is very, very, very small, right? The western part and the southern part have got much better infrastructure. Bangalore has got per capita highest number of beds in this country. Mumbai doesn't have enough beds like Delhi. All the gaps are being seen today when you have a pandemic, when people are really, really in deep trouble. But the system is rallying. Government has asked the army to step in. They're setting up camps. People are putting beds together in unused buildings. They're all got oxygen everywhere else. We are importing oxygen concentrators. Many good people like you are donating to us in the United States. Many people are sent everything. The world is supporting us like we supported the world in vaccine, like we supported the US, like President Biden said earlier. We're doing everything we can. So we're getting prepared to make sure. And I'm sure today the numbers are coming stabilizing. The numbers will come down. Like you said, Sridhar, there's a net decline in infected cases. Yes, yesterday could be an aberration because, it's a Sunday, right? It's a Sunday, and Sundays come on Monday, and Sunday there's not much testing happening. But we are grabbing up. Now, as far as vaccine is concerned, what is the biggest problem? We don't have enough supply. Now, who can give us supply? Can Moderna give us supply? They're not giving us supply. Can you buy from Pfizer? Yes, Sputnik we have approved. Pfizer we have approved. Moderna we have approved. The Chinese vaccine, I don't know we have approved. I don't know we should do it. These are all that. But the world doesn't have enough supply. Where is the supply? China has done 300 million vaccinations. The United States, 240. Europe is gasping because they don't have enough vaccines. They're filing cases on AstraZeneca. There's a shortage of global vaccines. And the Western countries will not give us for our needs without taking care of their needs, are going to Europe, right? We are far down the line. Luckily for us, the United States opened up the inputs because, a lot of people like you spoke up for it and they're given the inputs. For that, it must come. By July, we could be having maybe 120 million vaccines being produced a month in July, right? This month is tough. Next month is not going to improve July. And then 120, we could really make sure that maybe 60% of the population above 45 could be vaccinated in 2 months' time, or 2.5 months' time, and maybe 18 to 44. Maybe 30-40% can be vaccinated by October, November. It's a shortage of vaccine, not about giving them the vaccination shots. Okay, we got enough nurses to go do it. We can manage it because we manage huge program like the pulse polio. Remember, we are the largest vaccinating country. We got capacity to produce the largest quantum of vaccines for polio, diphtheria, or anything that children need. We are a large exporter. We got the capacity. But here, where is the IP? There are two IPs in this country, Bharat BioX, which came from, ICMR, which is the Indian product. And then we have the AstraZeneca, which is produced by Serum Institute. And Serum Institute has got an export commitment, which they're not able to fulfill because India is taking it. Now, this is a supply chain problem, Sree, that there is no solution till the vaccine production goes up and the world can make enough vaccines for everybody. Now, Sridhar, 1.3 billion vaccine shots have been given in the world. What about the 7.8 billion people in this planet? What happens to all of them? What happens to South America? What happens to Canada, your neighboring country? What happens to Africa? What happens to Southeast Asia? Southeast Asia has not suffered too much. They're okay. What happens to the rest? Now, Sridhar, we have to understand the global situation, learn to take precautions, make sure we are properly masked, social distancing, try to prevent infections. But we have suffered and it's been astounding. And the Western media was insensitive, vulture journalism showing people's cremation. Now, go to a cremation yard is a personal space. It's a holy place for us. It is not for photo shoot opportunities. It is not for people to take photographs and publish all the things. It's being insensitive to a culture. There's nothing but white supremacy at its worst. And there's nothing but vulture journalism like Barkadat and the Rana Ayub did for us. And these are people who are insensitive to own people, who mock our doctors, mock our health people, mock people who died. People who died deserve dignity in their death. You can't make the spectacle out of them. It is just not done. That is not humanity at all. But that's what the Western media is doing. But whatever is Sridhar, India will win. We will come out triumphant. We will suffer. We'll come out triumphant. We will conquer.
Great. Thanks for the clarification. So just to take back to the vaccinations, about 170 million people have been vaccinated as yet. So if you take 1.3 billion, addressable probably is around 1 billion, 1 to 1.1. Not all of the 1.3 billion is going to be because of children and so on and so forth. So if you take about 1.1, there's still about 900 million or 800 million people to be vaccinated. So to reach, to reach this entire universe, You are talking about if you take 100 million or 150 million, if you take 150 million 6 months from today, so
Yeah.
around November, the India will be fully vaccinated. In United States, for example, at least we have the data says when you cross 50%, then that means you will see dramatic downward trends in the new infections that is coming. But the ideal threshold point for it to socialize around is somewhere between 20 to 25% of the people getting vaccinated. So technically speaking, about another 80 million people getting vaccinated should see India reaching that 25% threshold. And then, of course, in the 6 months. So is there a vaccination path that the government needs to project and communicate, which is what they have done here in United States to say, in May, we will have this. By July, we'll have this. By November, we'll have this. And then you can calibrate the data. I think what we are missing is that type of information which says that this is the forward plan and we are adequate between 80 to 100 million to achieve this goal, Mohan. And any thoughts on that?
Sridhar, our biggest problem is the inability of the Modi government to communicate their strategy and what they have done. They've just not been able to have the mark. We have a health minister who's communicating but is not very clear. They give out all the data. What we need is an official spokesperson who's going to have a press conference in the morning and in the evening, give out all the data, counter all these fake narratives, and tell them in the next 3 months, this is the schedule, this is what we are going to do, and this is how it is. There's a lack of transparency. There's a good reporting, but a good data, but a lack of transparency, lack of communication. And that has been the problem with this government for some time. And that is why the international media is having a field day, the Lutyens media is having a field day, because they just haven't learned how to communicate. And I think we need to have an official spokesperson, especially for COVID, who's very, very articulate. Like Jaishankar is very articulate, remember, a foreign minister. It has to be a political person, or maybe MJ Akbar, who has come on your show, who's a political person and a former journalist, and they must be given the full authority to talk about it and to explain. And that can counter 70 to 80% of the fake narratives, all this kind of panic that is being created. And I think that's what India has missed. I mean, I don't think the government has got a coherent strategy. The Prime Minister speaks to the ordinary people of this country in Hindi, and he's been doing that, right? But you have the English-speaking crowd and the global crowd who doesn't understand that, who is so biased, the anti-Modi, the anti-India. They want every excuse to defame India. And India is just not up to the mark. That's what I feel sad. I tweeted to Prime Minister Modi, I tweeted to all of them, why didn't you appoint an official spokesperson? India's name is being dragged to mud. Exaggeration is happening. Some jokers are saying that the death is 8x, 10x. Some guys who claim to be academics, how can it be, Sridhar? And then this lady goes to the burning guard, sits down there, inside the guard with her PC, laptop open, and gives the pictures. And the Western world doesn't understand. You have some 20 cremation grounds in Delhi, out of which 6 or 7 are open only for COVID. All right. Now, Delhi has 380 deaths every single day. We have a death of 7 per 1,000 per population. 26,500 people die every single day. Whether they're buried or cremation, that is what our data is. Now, Delhi, it could have doubled for those particular days because they had 400, 500 extra COVID deaths. There's the possibility that many people who did not go to hospital were not reported. Yes, the real possibility. Because the reports are only people who are tested who go to hospitals, because the death reporting comes from the hospital. Now, if you don't go to a hospital because you don't get a bed, you take self-medication and you die in your house, you die because you don't know, and these things are happening, they're not reported. But they come to the cremation yard and they're cremated, and once the number of cremation yards is reduced, they all come there, there's chaos. It happens because it's much beyond capacity. You understand what it is. And for COVID patients, you have to put on a gown. There's a particular protocol that has to be followed. So the people there are not adequate. So this is being blown out of proportion. And my friend Kushal Mehra in Mumbai said that in Mumbai for those days, it could be 2x at worst. It cannot be 8x and 10x. Now all kind of jokers are saying, oh, India is having 30,000 dead, 40,000. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the data will come out after a year. And in the Financial Express, our friend Sunil Jain got an article published whereby they took the actual cremation every day in the previous year, same days, took it for this year, counted and said, yes, for these days, the death could be 2x or 2.5x, maybe 40, 50% has not been recorded. And it's very clear why it's not recorded. Nobody is taking data. There are 29 states that have to publish data. And each state will have some hundreds of people or points who are to give the data. Can you imagine everything getting fake, Sridhar? It doesn't happen, Sridhar. Nobody's sitting down there controlling faking. Just like in the United States, you couldn't capture all the data, you didn't do it, etc. You know what happened, right? You know, it is a mass thing. I mean, the same thing is happening in India. And for people to allege you're faking data is ridiculous. And some from academics to do that. Medical people say that only India's death is high, just out of the hat. So I think we need good communication. We need somebody to talk to everybody and give out like this, like you said, like the United States to say, next 3 months, this is what our schedule is. This is what we are going to give the states. And the union government has told the states, you can order global thing. You can do your own vaccination. You order directly. They opened the market for everybody. Because the criticism was, you're controlling everything. You centralize, blah, blah, blah. States are suffering. Now he said, I will only give free vaccines for people above 45. And I'll give them 2 shots. You state, please buy the vaccine, give it to people 18 to 44. And the private sector hospitals can also buy. And most state governments have said, we'll give it free to everybody 18 to 44, only in government hospitals. Come to the government hospital. So we got the states which are willing to do that, the center willing to do that, the private hospital, except the states have to pay a higher price. Private can charge what they want, but there is no vaccine. So we have the distribution network. We are not making enough vaccine. Who's going to give you vaccine? Can Biden have a golden man and say, vaccine, come? She said, it doesn't happen, Sridhar. This is a tragedy, but it must be communicated.
No, I agree. I agree. I think that there are 2 facets here. One facet is around, as you rightly pointed out, the communication, which is articulating what the real on-ground situation is. I think the second scenario is supply versus demand that just simply advances your critical threshold point, be it 25% or be it 50%, or be it 70% of the population, right? So when are you likely to reach, recognizing the constraints of the vaccine production and availability? So I think that's the second set of data that needs to come out. I think the third piece of data that you have articulated, which is to say that the federal or the central government funds all those people who are 44 to 70, albeit whether you are in whichever state you are in. If you're in the 18 to 44 category, then you have 2 mechanisms. One is a government and the other is a state. Sorry, one government and the other one is private. So on a private sector, you can pay and get your vaccine. And if you're in the government, the state may be able to subsidize or give it free.
No, state is giving free. Most states are giving it free.
But they need to communicate this and articulate it in a manner. So all these 3 pieces, as far as the vaccination and the timeline and when the critical thresholds are reached. And some of these vaccinations, they must all communicate, Mohan. They can deal with double and...
One small piece of data. There's so many people saying India doesn't have money, blah, blah, blah. Let me give you some data. The total budget of the state and the union government is 65 lakh crores. Now, 65 lakh crores is about $800 billion a year. All right. The vaccination for about, let's say, 1 billion people, 2 shots will not cost more than $10 billion. More than $10 billion. The money is there. The union government has budgeted something like about $5 billion in the union budget. And the balance is coming from the state. So it's not a shortage of money for anybody else. There's enough money. People are saying, where is the money? Show me the money. And why are they building that, new parliament house? New parliament house is costing 120 million. Government of India is spending 5.2 lakh crores on infrastructure this year, building roads and all that. 5.2 lakh crores is something like, close to $90 billion. $90 billion. And what is $120 million being spent on a new parliament? Look at the level of debate for all these silly people.
Yeah. So now to the going, almost touching the final, and then we go on to the next topic, which is the broader healthcare services that you talked about, per capita to hospitals availability, beds to deal with emergency time. So this is another thing that probably government needs to learn and communicate. Recognize this, that even in United States, I'm only saying United States. We are from United States. Most of the countries, for example, Japan has not yet started the whole vaccination program. They have a problem. That's the third largest economy in the world and a very small population, less than 50 million people. Then you take the case of Australia, which is in the lower. They had a relative smaller penetration, but they also had more cautious or extra cautious shutdown and isolation type of programs that Australia did. And then, of course, Britain and Europe went through these problems, recognizing each of the countries is maximum population of 60 or 70 million. Many of them are 30 to 40 million people. Most advanced nations such as France and Holland and Germany, and probably Germany is more advanced from the medical system, all went through these problems, but they did not increase the capacity of the number of beds of hospitals, recognizing that this is a temporary phase. Whereas India is still in the evolutionary journey of broadly building healthcare services and hospitals across. Most of it is in the urban or semi-urban areas. So what exactly is the government's plan as it looks at next 3-4 years in terms of how to enhance this to mitigate any such crisis, because it's not going to go away, that is looking in the near-term horizon?
Last June, Sridhar, we wrote an article, Nisha and I wrote an article about this. And we suggested as a part of the stimulus, government announced that in 500 districts of the 725 districts in this country, they will create a 500-bed tertiary hospital at the cost of 1 crore per bed. 1 crore per bed is 500 crores, and 500 crores into 500 is 250,000 crores for 3 years. We have the money. Money is not a problem. So we have 250,000 hospital beds coming up in each district. Then we have 7,700 talukas. At least create 2 or 3 primary health centers where you can have doctors. Then expand the number of doctors. We have 88,000 medical seats. Make it 125,000. How do you do it? If there's a medical college more than 20 years old, allow them to expand capacity by 50% over 2 years. Manipal has 500 doctors in Manipal and Bangalore. Give them 250 doctors more. They got enough faculty, and we can produce very good doctors. And nursing college, allow them to expand capacity by 25%. So in 10 years' time, we can produce enough doctors, enough nurses to meet India's requirement and the whole world's requirement, and we can become the largest producers and exporters of human capital in the medical area for the whole world. With the whole world. Because remember, in the IT industry this year, Sridhar, between the startup industry and the service industry, we are going to hire 500,000 engineers. No country can do that. We can do it. I hope Modi does that. It doesn't cost more money. 250,000 crores is something like about $40 billion. I mean, $40 billion, right? It is very small, Sree. That is very small. $40 billion is not much for a country of India's GDP, and it can be done. And what you can do is, for all those districts, we got 600 medical colleges. You can ask each medical college to take care of the hospital and manage it because they got human capital. It just requires some kind of a decision to be taken. We're going to write an article in this month end. I think we can easily do it. If government in Delhi, Narendra Modi takes a decision, I'm going to do it. He can do it and transform India in 3 years.
Got it. So let me, because we may take some questions in the interest of time. Now, we transitioned into the economy. Usually you have economic implications, and we saw the contraction of Indian economy by close to between 8 and 10%. There was a projection of 5 to 6% in the United States, but we got to less than 1%. Almost we reached parity. So in the case of India, which was projected to grow about 12% as India was coming out of the COVID, so how is the economic situation going to be handled as the coronavirus steps up, and then shutdowns now in many parts of the country, and then of course as you look out in the next 6 months, to wrap up the financial year 21-22?
Well, beginning of the year, people said we're going to grow between 11 to 13% per year, all right, on about $275 trillion of GDP. Our GDP the previous year, 2020, was 2.93 trillion. So if you see, it can come down. And of course, the rupee is become a little bit cheaper. So So rupee has come down compared to the dollar. That has an impact in everything else. So this year we're supposed to have that. Now April has not been a good month because in April possibly we have lost 15 days, and May is certainly not a good month. 80% of India is under localized lockdown. That means the informal sector has been hurt, retail has been hurt, tourism has been hurt, airlines have been hurt. The manufacturing is going on reasonably well. We've not seen them hurt. It's not as bad as what happened last year, same time. And even in the month of May, we could be down. So May, we will lose 1 to 2% of growth, April and May. And by the end of May, we got to see whether June will be a good month. And I think if June opens up fairly well, we could see that we could restrict it to maybe 2% for the year. Instead of 12.5%, we could be maybe 10%, maybe 9.5%. Today, somebody said we're going to be 9.5%. It's too fluid right now because, 1 or 2% more, we can make it up. March was an outstanding month for us because in April, we had huge amount of GST coming in. And the GST coming in is a result of sales and production, right? And of course, we got to see what happens. The Indian industry had the best profitable quarter in September, increase it in December. It's got a great quarter in March. And now they have the money. They know how to manage this. They know how to be efficient. I think they cut costs. But a lot of people have been hurt. They deserve support. Government is given 2 months of free ration. There's not enough. We need to produce jobs. So, but our capacity to spend on infrastructure has gone up tremendously. And government has said we'll willing to spend money on infrastructure, create jobs, blah, blah, blah. Government has learned how to handle it, how to spend. And I think we're in a better shape to tackle this economically than we were at the same time last year.
Got it. Okay, so I think the other question that props up with regard to India is this, lurking India-China threat up in the northern side of India. There has been skirmishes. There has been, conflicts. There has been many kind of battle, and then you get into a situation where, in the most recent discussions, that the China has said that it would not disengage in certain segments of the border. So, do you see how India is adequately prepared? Because usually you have these types of potential attacks when a nation is vulnerable and going through this crisis.
Sridhar, it's ridiculous for anybody in any part of the world to say that the Chinese can walk across a border and occupy a territory. We have a 1.3 million armed forces. The military is fully geared up. They're on the border and they've been training. They're all across the border. They got the relevant intelligence. Satellite images. We are monitoring them. We have got scouts, everything. We have moved our tanks. We moved our armor to the front places. The Chinese are not going to walk across this thing. And these are battle-hardened people who have fought insurgents there. They've been handling Siachen for the last 25 years. They know how to fight in the place. And remember, these are tough soldiers. These are real men, real soldiers. These are not one-child policy children who are grown up there and gone in the military and are bombarded by propaganda to think they're great people. And I know for a fact, speaking to people, that in the eastern part of India, near Bhutan, near Sikkim, when they came to the Galwan Valley, the Indian army stood up to them, man to man, interlinked locks, and stood there and said, "Thou shall not come." The Indian army is there to protect us. They will protect us. They know what to do, and we are fully prepared. If anybody at China dares to come across the body, they will meet with such casualties that they will have to withdraw. If they don't withdraw, we know what to defend. Let me tell you, the entire world is upset with China's hegemony. China has made sure all countries in the world, Southeast Asia, their neighbors in India, everywhere else, are very angry and upset with Chinese expansion. And you think the Chinese are going to get any more friends if they try to fiddle with India? India is prepared. We will defend our borders. We got all our equipment. We got a supply chain in place, and they cannot catch up this surprise. And if you hear in news item, they came inside. Don't believe. We can also go inside the border. If they come to a particular place, the 4,000-kilometer border, Sridhar, we can also go inside there and occupy their territory, right? We just don't do it because, we are a defensive post. We don't want to unnecessarily do all this kind of thing, bravado. We are here to defend our territory. Our military forces will defend our territory, whatever happens. Let it be said by anybody.
So to wrap up and then to take the questions and then, of course, hand it to Sree. There's wave 3 or wave 4 coming. So is India now learned its lessons from wave 2 and adequately preparing itself to combat?
Sridhar, yes, because the furor about India's inability to foresee the wave and the criticism is really, really loud. All state governments have been criticized. All state governments are preparing. The government of Maharashtra is preparing with oxygen supplies, keeping everything together, hospital beds, expanding, doctors, etc. Kerala is preparing. And Delhi, I don't know what that anarchist will do because he's an anarchist. We don't know what he will do because he only points fingers at others. Karnataka is getting prepared. Everybody in this country, the central government is preparing. We have the DRDO and the armed forces setting up hospitals all over the place. And Modi has said the armed forces will support India fully. It didn't happen in the first wave, second wave late in the day. And we're setting up oxygen plants in many, many places. We are buying cryonic, containers all over the place. And we are getting prepared. And we are going to be prepared. Now, if it comes in and suddenly shoots up, well, we got to face it, right? But we are going to be much, much prepared for the third wave. Then we are prepared for the second wave. We are going to be prepared. And all of the country, everybody is prepared. The only thing, Sridhar, which may hurt us is many people in many parts of the country are indisciplined. You spoke about the Kumbh Mela. There is no evidence that Kumbh Mela was responsible, but it could be possible because Arvind Virmani wrote an article. Maybe you should call him on your show and ask him to show the article whether the elections and Kumbh Mela was responsible. We have the farmers' agitation, which is supposed to be responsible. Swaraj wrote a magazine and they tracked it very well. We have Ramzan going on. This is a week of the final Ramzan. Our Muslim brothers and sisters are going to celebrate the festival. They're as indisciplined as a lot of people are. They're going to be together. We don't know what is going to happen. Right? We don't know what is going to happen. And this is a large country. There are 1.38 billion people. You can't control them. You can't shut down this country. Modi said he's not going to shut down this country. So you can't have the same thing that happened last year. So we don't know what's going to happen, but people are prepared. People are very cautious. They've seen these gory images of deaths. They've seen this cremation happening. And I think there's sufficient amount of fear among people to be cautious. And I think government will make sure that everybody mask up, social distancing for the next 3 to 4 months, because it's the only thing that can stop this becoming a bigger calamity.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Mohan. So thanks for all that, responses to the, so it was a very good discussion. And I'll transition to Sree for a few minutes, and then maybe we will wrap up after he concludes.
Thank you very much, Sridhar ji, and thank you very much, Mohandas Pai Avre. One or two questions that I personally have. The first question I have, Mohandas ji, is that even America, Fauci, for example, has acknowledged that Covaxin is the best vaccine against this double mutating virus. They are not so sure about Pfizer or Moderna as far as the double mutating virus is concerned. So whatever the ICMR and Covaxin have done, this particular vaccine, because they did not use the mRNA technology, they used a slightly different technology. In fact, I heard somewhere, I read somewhere that they went back to basics. How you did vaccines 30 years ago, like polio vaccine. And looks like that is a more stable formulation. My question to you, sir, is, I have read, again, this is reading information, that 56 raw materials go into the making of the vaccine. Do you have any idea if Bharat Biotech can source all its vaccines within India? Because we don't want to try, you don't want any other country to hold India to ransom. How is the situation there?
Well, I think Dr. Ellie has said all the raw materials are sourced within India. He's expanded the capacity to 700 million per year, blah, blah, blah. And he's scaling it up. He has made the statement that we are not dependent on the United States. We are doing it internally. We made sure, blah, blah, blah. So I think that is something that has to happen. Now, the DRDO has come out with their own vaccine. The DRDO, they've just been announced and just been approved. So that is something that will happen. And the DRDO will make sure that we don't have to import anything from anywhere else. So I think we are in a much better position right now to do that. And of course, President Biden has opened up because of pressure that Americans put on him, because it's very insensitive of the spokesperson to say, oh, our first priority is America. We don't care whether anybody dies. He didn't say that. Our first priority at a time when America was seeing the end of the road. That time was very inopportune. And I think he is now, President Biden as the world's largest economy, is understood, is responsible to the world, is not going to stop them. And huge capacity additions have come up in the United States. You're going to have surpluses. What are you going to do with the surpluses, right? And people's conscience has been pricked by this vulture reporting. The vulture reporting has pricked many people's conscience. We have seen many Silicon Valley companies send money, so many people do good things. And I think, I think that Bharat Biotech has done a great job. We'll see 2 or 3 more vaccines. Sputnik is going to go up. Sputnik, we don't have a problem with raw material. It will come from Russia or India. And Sputnik is going to be manufactured by Dr. Reddy's for a period of time. 1 or 2 other vaccines may come up. So I think we are much better placed. But it's a question of time. You can't manufacture 200 million vaccines just out of thin air. You need time. So I think, this time is what we don't have. People are very impatient, but there's no other way.
Thank you for that, Mohandas Payari. My second question is, today, warfare is not just on the ground at the border. Warfare is being fought on various fronts. For example, the jury is still out whether this double mutation, and some people say triple mutation, whether this was something that was implanted or was it just a virus gone out of control. Let us take it as a virus gone out of control. However, there are other challenges. For example, on 11th October or 13th October 2020, about a quarter of Mumbai plunged into darkness, and it was attributed to a cyber attack. In fact, last week, there was the supply chain which is carrying finished oil along from way south in United States all the way to the north. That main supply chain got hacked and they had to shut it down. That was the only way they could do it. It was ransomware. So my point, my question to you, Mohandas Payari, is how well is India preparing to counter some of the cyber warfare techniques, whether it is to bring down the stock exchange, whether it is to power or any such critical infrastructural elements. How well is India preparing for these kinds of warfares?
Well, I think India is in a heightened awareness to do this across India in many, many areas. I know about the stock exchange because the board of NSE earlier, Sree, you and I had debates. They got very good, robust infrastructure. They had a failure because of some other reasons, but they're tracking all day. They're seeing all that. They got strong systems. And across India, the banking sector, they got reasonably strong system. But you never know about these things, Sridhar. You never, Sree, you never know about these things, what could happen. So we are on alert. We are trying our best to do. We are as well endowed as any other country, maybe less than the United States. We are not put enough resources, but we are there. And as for somebody re-engineering the virus to try to push it to us, we are as open to a threat as any other country in the world. What can you do? What can you do? If somebody puts it in the US too, you're under threat. They put in the Europe too, and the threat. And that's why it's time for the world to come together and once and for all try to study the source of this virus, to send a word to anybody that nobody can get away by engineering virus and putting it against country. It is not acceptable anymore. They will be criminally marked forever. We know that in case of cyber attacks, there are 2 places in the world from where it comes, both the western part of Asia. We know that happens, right? Sometimes the Eastern Europe, somebody points a finger, but we know these 2 places. And I think we should all get together. And that's the only solution, prepared. But can we evade everything? I don't think so. I don't think any country. Are we as good as the United States? No. Are we as good as the Europe? No. Are we better than many other countries? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mohandas Payari. And I think this is a open question to PMO. Again, it is communication. Maybe you don't have to say how you are going to counter a cyber attack by China. Maybe you will plunge Shanghai into darkness. But at least let us try and start thinking along these lines. Heck, even US, the most advanced country, couldn't stop the ransomware attack. So vulnerabilities are there. This is happening. I think, like you said, like Sridharji said, we have to unitedly fight this thing. And that meeting of minds together is very, very important.
And
I think
Sree,
that is, yeah, go ahead.
Sree, we have one asset which many countries don't have. We have an enormous amount of software engineers. I hope the government of India will understand, like the United States government does, that they must get 100,000 of the best engineers who can be ethical hackers and tell any country, you go after us, you're going to let them lose. Remember, in the Cold War, the battle is a balance of terror. It's a balance of terror. You do it to us, we can do it to you. That's the only thing that will stop some malcontent countries from going after us, right? That's the only thing. I've been talking to many publicly and to many in the government saying we need our own ethical hacker community. We need a cyber core who will be, there'll be plausible deniability in case, you ask them to do it. And we must make sure that people who are hostile to us know that we can also go after them. It's not that we lack the people. It's not that we lack it. It's just that we are nice people.
Thank you so much, Mohandas Pai Aure. Let's just have a quick closing comments from both of you. And Sridhar ji, if you would like to go first, then I can have Mohandas Pai, who's our guest. He will finish up from his side. So that is my preferred order. But if you feel otherwise, please feel free to let me know, sir.
No, I think that we'll follow the order that you had suggested, Sree. So my closing comments would be, it's a fairly enlightening conversation in terms of where India is and how it proposed to address. It has communication challenges. It has challenges around articulating how the demand and supply in terms of the vaccination. I think there's a reasonable responses put up by Mohan on the healthcare services and expansion of the healthcare services. I think that I still believe that creating a task force by the Supreme Court is not only interventionist but inappropriate. A task force has never resolved a problem. You need to have, here in the United States, there is a COVID single point coordinator. That's Dr. Fauci. India probably needs somebody like a Dr. Fauci. In fact, I don't know. Yesterday here, the media reports is that Dr. Fauci went public by saying, I went to the Prime Minister of India and advocated that I support him shutting down the nation because this particular virus is a little more complicated and we don't have the data until we get to the data. There is nobody of that ilk in the Indian government. And rather than a task force, maybe, they could have brought Dr. Sridhar, who is known to be one of the most competent. I'm just suggesting a name. I don't know whether he's interested or not. Somebody of that personality who knows and who has solved issues, such major issues at a national level, to be doing that. And I think India badly needs that rather than a task force. That's my kind of closing comments and observations. And I wish India very well to fight and combat out of this major pandemic that it is confronted with.
But Sree, I would say that,
Sree,
that wave 2 overwhelmed India. The speed of the virus was unbelievable, 100,000 to 400,000 daily infection in 25 days. It overwhelmed India. We were caught by surprise because we are not prepared for such a spike to happen. Maybe we are complacent of the first wave because we conquered it and we were overwhelmed. And I agree with Sridhar. We have some challenges. One, we have something called the Pandemic Act, which was put in by the British. Under that, government can take over draconian powers, do what they want. I wish under the Pandemic Act, they will appoint somebody who is respected as the head of the COVID task force for India to monitor on a daily basis for the next 1 year till the global pandemic comes down. And that person will have all the authority to issue directions, etc. Because you need somebody who's an expert, somebody who understands this, who's fully focused 24/7 on this matter to tell everybody. And I think that's very important. And I think under him, we need to have people who have got expertise, people who know the matters to come together. And then we need to have an official spokesperson to talk to us every single day, morning and evening, give us the data, counter these fake narratives. And like Sridhar said, give the path forward for the next 2 or 3 months to give hope to people. See, in the pandemic, when it's uncertain, you got to give hope to people. You got to tell people this is what it is. We're going to do it. Hang on. We're there for you. We got to give hope to people. Because what are they seeing on TV? People dying for want of oxygen. People dying for this. People dying for this. Cremation yard. But all kind of gory details. Panic. We have got mental health experts who are saying, please don't do all this. You're just spending panic. You're creating negativism. And people will lose hope. We have to give hope to people. Because this is an act of God. If ever there's an act of God. It may be an act of man from the west of the Asia. But it's an act of God where you can't stop it, right? And we only have to take precautions and get over it. We know there's going to be a third wave. We've got to be prepared for it. And then We got to reshape India in the next 3 to 4 years. So never again will anybody die for want of medical care, for want of oxygen, or for want of a bed in a hospital in such numbers. So I think we got a long way to go. And see the suggestions. Your suggestions are very good. I do hope people in Delhi are listening to it, because I think, Sridhar, our people have done a great job. 1,000 doctors and medical professionals lost their job. 250 bureaucrats have lost their job. Maybe 1,000 policemen have lost their job. The ordinary Indian everywhere is rallying to the flag. Doctors are doing a hard job. They're overstressed. They're overworked. They're still there to save our lives. And government is doing its best. The vaccine manufacturing, the truck drivers are driving, the railways are driving. Man, everybody is doing it. They deserve sensitivity. They deserve sympathy, not finger pointing, not abuse, not making us a spectacle, and not, having this white supremacist attitude of showing the burning guards there, because that's our cremation. That's a holy place for us. It's a holy place, Sridhar. You know that as Hindus, we take our dead there, we do a puja, and we bid goodbye to the place for puja. We bid goodbye. We shed our tears there. That is not a public spectacle. It cannot be a public spectacle. These people are wronged us. But what Sridhar has said is right. We need to get our act together and do things better.
Thank you very much, Mohandas Payare, Sridharji, and my hearts go out to all those in the medical profession. I'm being told that many doctors are pulling 16-hour shifts, 7 days a week. And they don't even go home every day because they are afraid what level of contamination they may carry back home. So they just go once or twice a week. So spare a thought for them. There are many of us, these are our children, our daughters, our nephews, aunts, uncles, whatever. So I think it's important, together we all have to stand and fight this thing. It is very unfortunate. I'm hearing many 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, my own relatives and acquaintances are dying. It's heartrending when you say, this guy is so healthy. What happened? So these questions are happening, but stay calm, stay home. Most importantly, and I can't emphasize this more, keep your children home. The children are very asymptomatic, but we have to always remember that this is a very Darwinian vaccine, and please, please, please stay home, stay safe. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening, and please don't forget to subscribe to PGurus channel. Namaskar.
Thanks so much, Mohan. Thanks, Sree. It was wonderful. Thank you.